Muckleshoot, and other tribes who are part of the Coast Salish peoples. We recognize and express our deepest respect for their enduring stewardship and profound relationship with this land, which they have cherished and protected since time immemorial. We honor the First Peoples, acknowledge their vibrant cultures, and commit ourselves to learning from their wisdom in our journey to promote justice, equity, and mutual understanding. We pledge to stand alongside these communities in acknowledging past injustices and working towards a future that respects and celebrates the diverse heritage of this land.
Please rise. Pledge allegiance, flag of the United States of America. Public. If there's no objection, I would like to add to the agenda after the item number 8, which is the public hearing, that we will take action on the housing element, the land use element, and the introduction to comprehensive plan in that order. I'd like to notify the public that are listening, since there's no one here tonight otherwise, that the commission is required to take action on these items that we're hearing tonight so that we are able to stay on schedule with the city council. Thank you. If there's no objection, we'll let the agenda stand as amended. Thank you. So, is there anyone signed up for public comments?
No, and I realized that I have, we normally put the public hearings first.
Okay.
It's okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
There is no one signed up virtually or in the audience for public comment.
So we're going to move on from public comments to the next item, which is the consent agenda. I'm not aware of any planning commissioner excusals that we need from last meeting. So if there's no comments on the minutes and no objection to the consent agenda, then it'll be unanimously adopted. So first, we're going to have the public hearing on the housing element of the comprehensive plan. Is there anyone signed up for this on virtual?
There is not, and there's no one in the audience for this.
So the public hearing is open, and seeing that there is no one here to testify, the public hearing is closed. Item 2 is the public hearing. We're going to break our own record tonight. This is the public hearing, item 2, which is on the land use element. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up virtually?
There is no one virtually signed up or in person signed up for public testimony.
The public hearing is open, and seeing that there is no one to testify, the public hearing for the land use element of the comprehensive plan is closed. Public hearing number 3 is for the introduction to the comprehensive plan. That is the introduction items before it gets to the elements. Madam Clerk, is there anyone that wishes to speak virtually?
There is no one signed up online or in person for the introduction.
Third time's a charm. Ladies and gentlemen, the public hearing on the introduction to the comprehensive plan is open. And seeing that there's no one to testify, it is hereby closed. Okay, that's 3 hearings in 4 minutes. Okay, so we're going to, up the ante to the city council. Right. So our next item is now to work on the housing element. And I will allow and ask our beloved staff, our esteemed planner, Mr. Hall, if he wishes to make any comments. And of course, his boss is right next to him, and she will not be quiet if she doesn't want to be.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. As you recall, last meeting, we went through a few items, remaining items for each of the elements, first through housing and then land use and then introduction. These were relatively minor in nature. They're all, in these drafts now, they're all in yellow. So we've removed all the different colors to differentiate the different comments from certain folks. You recall that we addressed a few things from comments that we received from both Commerce and FutureWise. Just for the record, we also received some few minor comments from PSRC, who's another agency, Puget Sound Regional Council, just recently. And we're making some of those minor changes that will then be incorporated into the documents as they go forward with the city council. But it's not changing anything substantive that or major that the planning commission has reviewed. It's just really kind of more like buttoning up loose ends and things like that.
What would be an example just for, I mean, you don't have, just off the top of your
off the
mind.
top of my head, I think there was some things related to housing, just better documenting of housing affordability, and one of the other things that we needed to show our work, basically, aside from the land capacity analysis, which is, you've all known that's coming. And in fact, today we received some preliminary feedback or numbers from Kimley Horn, our consultants. But another one was what's called adequate provisions. And that's for ensuring that we're addressing, or Kenmore addresses, things that we need to accomplish either in our code or development regulations or policies, that we're addressing housing affordability and availability to all different income levels. We've talked about this pretty extensively over the last, several months probably, but it's more of better clarifying that as it reads in the state law. So RCW has a number of things that are listed, and it's just for those that are, better identifies the reader. And so when you see that copy go forward, you'll see that some of that language in there. So we've added some of those new sections. In addition to that, we've also included that where it said land capacity placeholder, we've did just a very small section in the housing element that will identify the preliminary, the findings of the housing surplus, which is good news, because we have a surplus for the capacity to achieve our housing targets. That was one of our things we talked about, which we didn't know at the time, but we've gotten that information back. And so unlike some of our other jurisdictional neighbors around that has some challenges, the good news is that Kenmore, as it stands now, and where our zoning is that we have the capacity in order to achieve the 2044 housing targets. So I know we've kind of talked about that and whether or not we would be able to achieve that. With that said, we're still, with all the policies and things that we're doing in our code, middle housing and whatnot, we're still going to make changes per state law requirements to then further achieve those objectives that we've been talking about. And so that's
Those-
really
Those objectives, though, are already in.
exactly,
Right, okay,
yes,
right.
yeah.
There's
And
no
like I
changes there.
said, this isn't really changing anything major. It's just more of documenting things. So Debbie and I are going to be over the next couple of weeks just buttoning up those couple of sections, and then we'll incorporate that into the draft that goes to council. But it's really like maybe a page in total that talks about these things. And it's very defined based on state law. So it's nothing that's should be of any, major shock to you folks, because we've talked about a number of these things.
And what you're also saying is that it does not change the policy which we have
Correct.
processed so far.
Yeah, that's
This
correct.
is all info and technical administrative additions that are required by
Yeah,
our
it's
oversight.
Yeah, it's strengthening our document so that when we received comments from FutureWise and PSRC and Commerce, we needed to better show that rather than just in some, maybe one or two sentences, which we did, and then a couple of policies, we're just adding a little bit more meat, if you will, to the document that then shows that that body of work, in addition to the land capacity analysis, which again, in the housing element, instead of where you saw land capacity placeholder, we're just putting a short summary on that, and then we're referring the body of work of that document, which is the show your work. That's going to be an appendix as part of the comprehensive plan, just like a number of other things. We had like East Side for All report, racial equity analysis. There's a few things that were going to be attached to the comp plan when it's adopted by city council, and the land capacity analysis will be one of those documents.
Is there going to be some blood, sweat, and tears attached?
Well, possibly.
Okay. So
We've all gone through that for the last couple of years, right?
Lady and gentlemen of the commission, I would entertain a motion to complete work on the housing element and proceed to public hearing. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And it's been
No, no,
moved
no.
and seconded. So
What-
now,
We're at public hearing for housing.
no, we're on,
That's, we just had it.
we just had it. So
Yeah.
I added the, to the agenda action on the three items after the public hearings.
But we're moving it to council, not public
Yes.
hearing, right?
No,
Okay,
to.
okay. So we're moving it to council.
Oh,
You
we're
said
mov-
here at public hearing,
Yeah.
but we're just
No, I'm
moving
sorry.
Just-
recommendations to council.
Calm
Yeah.
down. Okay. Okay, so correcting that motion is to complete the work on housing element and refer it to the council for further action. That was the motion, wasn't it?
That was the motion.
Oh, good. Okay, so woo, woo, yeah. So I would entertain a motion to allow the staff to make technical administrative corrections and additions to the housing element as prescribed by organizations having jurisdiction over this type of policy. Need a motion? Saying so moved.
So moved.
Good. Is there a second? Second, good. Okay, guys, wake up. I know we're just moving really quickly tonight. Okay, is there any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed? Oh, hi.
See me up in the cloud.
Yeah, okay, Mr. Cloud, just go, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was working on a technical difficulty. Can I just get a clarification on who sent the motion? Okay, Derek.
And who's second? Oh, okay, we're all set then. Okay, so now you, Mr. Hall, you are taken care of. Is there any further discussion on the motion or on the element? Last chance, folks. Hearing, oh, there you go. Commissioner Banazinski.
Yeah, we've put a lot of, excuse me, a lot of good work into this element. This won't be any surprise to anyone because I have mentioned it several times, but I still feel I feel personally kind of unresolved yet about where we're heading with our compliance with HB 1110 and how that is going to play out. And so I know that it's largely an issue of code, and yet this housing element kind of sets us up to go either way. Which I guess I'm just kind of registering my discomfort with that for the record, there's just a comment.
Any further comments? Now, I understand that the technical administrative issues have nothing to do with environmental constraints or anything to do with the missing middle housing policies that we've discussed, correct? I mean, if it's just informational stuff, that we're not changing anything, just for the record.
I think based on the discussion from the last meeting that Councilman Banazinski is concerned that there is not a specific direction in policy, that we've left it, we could go either way, because at this point, we don't know what the direction will be. I think we understand the concerns about, protecting the environment and whatever regulations are brought forward would provide that protection. So we've heard those comments and concerns, and we'll take those into account when we do bring forward the regulations. And if when we bring those forward and we kind of look at those and we feel that we need to amend any of the housing element policies, we can certainly do that as part of the docket next year.
We've identified, so that's one thing that Debbie and I are doing now in preparation for prepping the docket for the commission, is identifying all the things that we foresee happening potentially with middle housing. There's some, in addition to middle housing regulations themselves, then there likely will be some adjustments, albeit, a lot more minor to the housing and land use elements that will need to be made, because like Debbie said, we just don't know all the answers yet. And we'll be figuring this out in the coming months. And then I would say, by the springtime, we're going to have a better understanding of that. But we've identified a few things in addition to some other Kenmore Municipal Code things that we need to do that are associated to the middle housing, like impact fees and, some transportation stuff, things like that, that inevitably higher density is going to create a trickle down, effect of other codes. And so that's just something that we're definitely aware of, and we're going to be talking about that with our consultant and definitely be coming back to you several more times with that code. It's just right now we're kind of in the stage where we've set the stage for implementing some policies to allow for middle housing, but what that ultimately means in the final outcome, we may have to tweak some of the language and the terminology, plus possibly adding another policy or two. So there's more to come. This, like we've said before, this is not an end all be all of these documents. And we've expressed that also to the council too. And so, you know, we have the opportunity each and every year to open up the book, so to speak, to come back into these elements. And as long as we identify that on our annual docket, which we are going to do because we know that's what we're gonna have to do, we'll go back in there and make those necessary changes. But the stuff that you've been doing now is for the huge, 10-year update. And we just had the opportunity to include some of that middle housing stuff now while we had the chance in 2024. And then we'll go in and make some more refinements. So hopefully that kind of puts things at ease a little bit for you.
Well, I appreciate you restating that for the record. And I think if anybody comes back and listens to the YouTube, that's very well said. And I think we're going to meet the deadline, unlike our most friendly neighbor, Lake Forest Park, got just trounced in the Shoreline Area News. But and thank you to Commissioner Dorian for pointing that article out to us on the Facebook page, that he posted it on a Facebook page. That's all I'm saying. Not our Facebook page, but a Facebook page. And it's very interesting to read that and compare their situation and how much work we've done to stay out of running out of time, which I as chair, and I hope I'm speaking on behalf of all the commissioners, really appreciate both of you, our staff, making sure we kept on time. So when is the presentation to the city council by us again? It was in your memo.
You talking about for the planning commissions?
Yes.
That would be in 2 weeks, so the 28th. Yeah, so not next week, but the following week. That'll be for these 3 items.
Thank you. Commissioner Banzinski.
Yeah, just as a follow-up to that, thank you very much, Todd, for explaining that again. I want you to know that I have heard you, and I know that you have heard me. I think when it comes time for me to vote, and I take this very seriously. I know we all do, and when things like that linger for me, it just, yeah, I just needed to communicate one more time. So thank you for hearing me again.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, is there any objection to the motion by any commissioner? Commissioner Olson, is that a sideways no?
That is a sideways no. Yes.
Thank you. So hearing no objection, the motion is adopted unanimously, and the housing element is off to the council. Item number 2 is the land use element. And if I may take the liberty to use the same wording as we used in the housing element, sending it to the council for their action. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Been moved
Second.
and seconded. So is there any discussion? This is the land use element. Yes. Commissioner Dorian.
It's going to take me a minute to find it. There is something in here I think we'd want to look at along the lines of what Commissioner Banasinski was describing with the housing element. I think it goes a bit further in here when it describes what we're going to allow in the R1 to R4, which I know is still policy. Yeah, here we go. It is page L21 and then lines 13 through 16. Just the way that we're describing what we're going to allow in low density residential, I think it ends up actually allowing more uses than we allow in medium density residential, because it talks about putting townhouses in low density residential. So it's getting quite specific. We're, in the housing element, it's more just let's allow 6 of the 9, which I get. This is now quite specific about allowing specific ones of that 6 within different areas. So I wondered if we want to think about this one for a minute. I'm not quite sure what I would propose as a motion, but it didn't sit right with me that we were saying townhouses would be in our low density residential areas, but not in medium density. I would almost flip that.
But right now, this is a question to staff, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, or if anybody else wants to join me in my, my debate, yeah.
Question for staff. Am I wrong or am I right in believing that we already have a code that allows townhouses throughout the city? Subject, of course, to the usual.
I would need to verify that by looking really quick, but I believe that's the case. I can check unless Debbie knows off the top of her head. R1.
Quick question.
Commissioner Olson?
Would sorry, let me think how I'm going to phrase this. For the segment under discussion currently, low density residential and medium density residential, is there any difference in terms of allowable scale between, say, a townhouse and a single family home? Like if I were a developer and I were to build as large as I wanted, based on how we currently have the code, is there any difference in footprint that would be allowable with a townhouse than, say, a single family home, or would they basically be the same in terms of environmental impact?
Commissioner Vanderlyn?
Thank you. I think you just put your finger on probably what may be one of our core discussions when we get back to looking at code and regulation. Because the act, that's a limit that says you can't have any more restrictive, but it doesn't say you have to have less restrictive. I think that's a discussion we'll come back to and will be a core discussion when we sit to write the specifics of code. Debbie will tell me I'm wrong.
Staff.
So I might have missed some of the questions that were floating about there, but what you asked about was municipal code and the allowance for townhomes in single family zones, so R1, R4, R6. So multifamily dwellings are permitted, but there is a footnote to that permission. States that townhouse units only permitted and only on lots in a subdivision or short subdivision designed for townhouse units. Other townhouse units require a conditional use permit. Apartments are prohibited. So right now there is allowance, but there is an additional process to go through to allow them in those single family zones. So again, that's what, I mean, townhouses are one of the 6 or 9 types of middle housing. And that's one of the things that we will have to talk about some more, and that discussion has come up. We have to allow six of the nine.
Yep.
And so the question is, where are we going to allow 6 of the 9 and under what conditions and processes? We
Right.
can't make it too onerous, because the idea is to allow more housing choice. So if you want to allow more housing choice, you want to make sure that it can be allowed in sort of no more restrictive way than is currently allowed for a single family home. That's where ultimately where we're trying to get to, and balance all those other things that we need to take a look at. Environmental concerns and trees and access and parking and everything else. So I think we know that we have to do it, but the implementation piece on how and where we do it is up for discussion next year.
Go back and then also just to circle back to Commissioner Dorian, and the question on whether to have townhouses listed in this specific sentence. I think in this case, I would interpret as it being listed as such because it is as one of those uses. However, with that said, as Debbie pointed out, there's additional conditions in the code itself that will provide more specificity on when those units would be permissible or not, and whether it's an outright permitted conditional use. And so we're not going to get that obviously that finite in a comp plan, but it is true that townhouses and these types are permitted in this type of low density residential. But again, this is a conversation that we'll be having more robust conversation in the next several months. So stay tuned.
I mean, it might be, I might be splitting hairs. The language in medium density residential just seems a little less assertive. I guess if I can put it in that way, because the higher densities may be permitted to allow particular middle housing types, and housing may include then the various different types. I don't know, just to me, it reads a bit more assertive that these land uses allow middle housing development to include. It's a bit stronger. I would almost prefer they get flipped. So we're a little bit more reticent about doing it in low density because we want to also balance that with environmental constraints. And then, I don't know, splitting hairs now, I know, but we've got time. So
Well,
this evening we do, not forever, but yeah.
If you have a motion, then that would be in order.
Now you're asking me. Why don't we try something like
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah,
May
go
I
ahead.
ask a question?
yeah.
Is this your only item?
This is my only item.
Does
yeah.
anyone else have an item on this element? Hearing none, 5-minute recess, please. Okay, we're back in session. Commissioner Dorian, how you doing down there?
I'm doing good. All right.
Have a motion?
I do have a motion.
Okay, so as I will remind you, please state the page and the line number.
The page is L21. We're looking
And
at
this is on the yellow.
in the yellow
correct?
section. Yeah. Oh, yeah, good point. Yeah. In the
Markup.
in the marked up version. L21 lines 13 through 16. I would suggest that we strike,
No, you move.
I would move, that we strike the yellow section. These land uses also allow middle housing development to include 6 of the 9 approved middle housing types, such as duplexes, triplexes, townhouses, and cottage housing. So strike as it currently is, so that we go straight from overall base density of 1 to 6 dwelling units per acre to, in the R1 and R4 districts, uses are clustered as appropriate in relation to environmental constraints and the protection of critical areas. And then I would move that we add a sentence after that sentence that says, within that context, middle housing development may be permitted and may include 6 of the 9 middle housing types within the context of the environmental constraints and protection of critical areas. So I know we're sort of doubling up, but just making the point that we're going to allow it, but we want to be aware of the environmental constraints. I can type that and send it.
No,
or-
no, you can't.
No,
This
'cause we
has
have to
be done
discuss, yeah.
tonight. That's why our other esteemed person in the room, clerk, is quickly
Writing that down.
up.
All right, I'll
So
go.
let's, that's a motion.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Now I see that our staff is eager to have some advice for us.
Well, I would if Commissioner wouldn't mind reading it again, because I can't type.
Yeah,
and
no,
listen at the
that's
same
fine.
time.
I'll go slowly. So the new sentence would be, within that context, middle housing development may be permitted and may include 6 of the 9 middle housing types within the context of the environmental constraints and protection of critical areas.
Okay, so this, I'm not reading it for the record because I'm going to let our clerk do that, but just a summary is that you're striking the yellow part altogether, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then you're rewriting that last sentence.
Yes, correct.
And
yeah.
there is no other sentence
Uh,
that you're adding.
Does striking the sentence that starts, these land uses also allow?
Yeah, the yellow mark.
Then keeping in the R1 and R4 districts, uses are clustered, that sentence, and then adding that new sentence within that context after the current last sentence of
Just
the paragraph.
At the end of
Yep.
that page, where it says critical areas, period, then your new sentence. Got it.
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay, so good. I see our clerk nodding her head in a up and down motion. That means that she's got this. But now I'm just asking this as chair to make sure that what was said is what you mean. Okay. And that is, I read in what is already on line 17, appropriate in relation to environmental constraints and protection of critical areas. And you have another sentence after that with that same phrase, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and you mean it to be that way, okay. So what I'd ask, we do understand that the yellow is being struck, so I will ask the clerk to read the new language, starting on line 16, in where it says in the R1. Let's just read the whole, what the rest of the paragraph would be.
So starting in the R1 and R4 district sentence.
Yes.
Okay,
If
in
you-
the R1 and R4 district sentences, uses are clustered as appropriate in relation to environmental constraints and the protection of critical areas. Within that context, middle housing development may be permitted and may include 6 of the 9 middle housing types within the context of environmental constraints and critical areas.
Good. Commissioner Dorian, good?
Yeah, I think,
Good, okay.
yep.
Just, I
No.
wanna- Okay, so I have a question. I don't mean to be taken, but I'm sort of more, the may word. Is that okay? No, I'm just making sure, right?
Requires
Yes.
you do this, so I don't. You're okay because you added straight at the end.
Okay.
Well, we can't say.
We're not gonna have a problem with our upper echelon. I'm not talking about the council. I'm talking about the people that approve these things. Okay, great. Okay, I'm sorry to have taken up time, but I feel it's
Oh, no,
really
yeah.
important that we understand the technicalities. And we do have a lawyer over here. Am I doing okay? Okay, because you do understand the difference in just a word or two can make, yeah. All right, so discussion on the motion. It's been moved and seconded. No discussion, staff comment, you gave a thumbs up, you're good. Hearing no discussion, then is there any objection to the motion? How's the cloud doing? That's a thumbs up from the cloud. Hearing no objection, the motion is adopted unanimously. Is there any further comments or motion on the element? Right? So we'll close that will close discussion. And the main motion is to move this on to the city council. Are there any objections to the main motion? Hearing none, the main motion is adopted. And the land use element is off to the council. Our next item, I would, as we did on the last 2 elements with that motion for the city council, Madam Clerk, we'll use the same motion that we did the other 2 times. I'm looking for a motion. So moved and seconded. There discussion on the introduction to the comprehensive plan. One more time, any further, any discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we send this off to the city council. Hearing no further discussion, I will close discussion. Is there any objection to the main motion? Hearing none, the motion to move the introduction of the comprehensive plan onward to the city council is adopted. Okay, honestly, to tell you the truth, misplaced my last page of the whole thing. Our actual upcoming meeting, which we will be present for, will be our city council presentation on October 28th at approximately 7 o'clock. Thereafter, we will November 19th at 7 p.m. Is there anything first that the staff would like to, let's say, have we really finished what we have to do for the year?
You.
I
will have-
mean, not to say we don't have more
No,
work.
No, I know. You finished the policy discussions. I don't know if we'll be ready to bring back anything on furthering the middle housing discussion. We have to talk to the consultants and see if we'll be ready to bring something back in November. I don't have the answer to that, but yes, you finished the policy.
So we have made the city council deadlines. We're done for this, for the deadlines this year.
In terms of the comp plan, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to speak on behalf of, not Debbie, but myself, just all the time and effort that you've put into this before was here, because I joined kind of sort of midstream, but since June of 2023 till now, I mean, just the incredible amount of work that each and every one of you have put into this is just, it's just amazing. So I know it's a huge undertaking. Every time that I've done this, and Debbie too, we've probably each combined have done 3 or 4 of these comp plans in our careers, and it's no small undertaking. And so just the amount of feedback and back and forth, and just the care and concern that you take for the community just truly shows. And so I just want to express my appreciation for that, for you and all the time that you've taken during meetings, and of course to city council, and expressing your recommendations of all the work that we put together. This has been a team effort, so it's not just all me and Debbie and others. It's you as well. This is your document, so this is why we bring this to the planning commission, and it's yours to craft and bring forward to the council. So just thank you.
So when we go, which is only in a couple of weeks, it'll be the same format, and we can be, depending on how that meeting goes, we'll either give a short intro, staff intro, and then we're going to turn it over to you to talk about anything you want to highlight on the land use and housing and intro element. So I just want to make sure that you are going to be prepared on the 28th.
That brings us to the last piece of our work. Let's start with the, in the same order, the housing element. Does anyone want to speak to a specific item with regard to the commission's work on an item? This is the housing element. Okay. You look like you're going to say something, Commissioner Banazinski, it's like you're holding your hand down, just trying to restrict yourself from, but go ahead, you want to say something? Yes, she does. See, I can tell. Sitting next to you for too long, I think. What? Oh, she does. Okay.
Yes, I would love to, at the pleasure of the commission, because I know I will be speaking on behalf of all of us and not just me, but I would love to say something about the thinking that we've done about potential alternate compliance with HB 1110 and how we distribute missing middle housing types throughout the community. I know we're not there yet and we haven't made a recommendation, but I would love to give the council some indication of what we've been thinking and talking about, if it's okay with the commission.
All right, that's one comment. Okay, anyone else? There he is in the cloud. I was waiting for you.
Hopefully this time I won't put my foot in my mouth when I make my comment.
Oh, don't say that.
I would like to make a comment about the commission's approach to balancing environmental considerations and housing choice and affordability. I think the caveats that we've put in, while we know and intend to come back to the housing element again, the next year, probably foreseeably for a little bit as we get things pinned down. I think it'd be important to talk about the efforts towards allowing for more types of housing like ADUs and middle housing, while also working to ensure that we don't further degrade and ideally work towards enhancing our natural environment.
All right. That's 2 for the housing element. Commissioner Dorian.
Depending on who else wants to speak, I feel like I should give context on some of the policy additions that were made, especially coming from Commerce, and that, because there's a raft of them. So just thinking about how to tee that up. So if anybody else wanted to pick some of them, I would,
Well,
I would focus
just
in on
remember the staff will do an intro. Is that right?
Very brief, because
Very brief.
just like the last meeting when we did the other downtown, the council's busy with the budget, and so I want to make sure that I'm not too wordy in the presentation. That doesn't mean that the planning commission can't make their comments, but I don't feel it's necessary for me to kind of reiterate what you're already going to say. So I'm just going to really tee you up for, saying all the these elements we spent a tremendous amount of time on these 2 elements in specific, and then just hand it over to you, Chair Thompson, and then the others can chime in.
So, Commissioner Dorian, I'm, each of us has about 2 or 3 minutes, so you're going to have to pick a couple.
Yeah, I'll hit on affordable housing if I can then, and focus in on what we've changed goal and policy wise around affordable housing, because I think that's where we've hit it hardest with the targets, etc. But we'll actually put more to that. Aligning policy to the targets is where I think we've really made a lot of changes. So I'd like
Aligning
to speak to that.
policies to targets.
Yeah, to the housing targets
Targets
that we've got.
meaning target numbers.
Target numbers of housing
I
units.
just want to make sure
yeah.
the right
No, you're right.
target. I didn't want to get the wrong bullseye.
It's very important. Yeah, I played darts sometimes. I'm aware. You want to be on the right board.
All C to targets, okay. Because one of the things that I will do in my introduction is outline that these items will be discussed by individual commissioners as we feel that they're important to be discussed or commented on, or whatever I say. I'll have to figure that out. Okay, anything else for housing element? That's good. Very good. Oh, Commissioner Vanderline.
I'm also forcing my hand down. Whether, I think, very brief comments by staff or maybe. Oh, don't.
I can take that on in my introduction if you want, or
Sure,
you
I
can
think it's
speak, or you can
both
speak to it.
elements, so I mean,
Oh, I think if you're going to say that, I think it's, the message you're saying is it's not that you would expect to be opening up everything.
Right.
I think it would be to focus on any necessary changes to align with the new regulations.
point is, there is more.
Yep.
Right.
Well, I think we could all agree the meat is in the code. Would that be fair?
Hey, Mike,
The meat.
I don't, was your mic on for that?
It is now.
Can you just briefly repeat what you said? That you, it was worth repeating.
Sure. Part of, I think, the chair's comments, we've decided, we want to make clear to the city council that we've taken a great deal of time and consideration coming forward with these recommendations. But there's information that we expect to come forward after this, and there may be a recrafting of parts of this as we become more aware of this new information. And as we begin to tackle the code and regulation, that could have an impact on the work we've done so far.
Yep. Okay. Hearing no further folks that want to jump in, we're going to move on to land use. Okay, so who would like to speak to a particular point in land use? No one? Okay, then I will make an intro and call it good. Okay. Then lastly is the intro to the comp plan.
And if the commission doesn't want to, staff can just make a brief comment about the introduction section as just a lead up to all the elements of the comprehensive plan. There's really not much else to say about it other than that. So, I mean, I'm happy to, in my brief statements, just to mention, we have two elements and one section being presented tonight. One of those being the introduction section, and all that really is a summary of all the elements that can consist of the comprehensive plan. Or I'll come up with some words.
Yeah, well, and then
I'm tired.
I think it's updated too, and I think that our focus is that it was updated. We read it as updated.
Yes.
We read it as there's possibilities for amendments as the rest of the elements are considered by the council.
Yeah,
And
it-
that it needed it.
Yeah, well, it's just, it's refreshed, it's updated to include new elements that were not previously part of the comprehensive plan, something like that. I'll craft some,
Well, you know,
yeah.
I think it was, you folks did a really good job on that, and God, it needed to be done. And I certainly am very happy that you didn't forget about it. We were able to do it because it reads well now compared to what it read before. Commissioner Vanderleen?
I absolutely agree with everything, I think. When I think about this third component, what I think is what we've already said, which is we've updated it, but really what we've done is, in commission's work on this, has been to review those updates and ensure, and we do have the consensus that we now have an introduction that's consistent with all the other work that we've done. And I think that's the key message we want to give them. These are technical in nature. We're not changing policy. This doesn't impact policy, but it ensures that we have consistent presentation to the document.
That's great. Further comment on that? There you go, Commissioner Dorian, you saved the day.
Sorry, I'm delayed. I'm back in element. I think I'm tired as well. I think it would be worth pointing out, and maybe I didn't know that I was the right person to point it out, but where we have increased the focus on the historical land use of Indigenous peoples in Kenmore within the land use element, I think that is something worth raising to council. If nobody else wants to do it, I'll do it, but if somebody else
Okay,
wants to
so
take that on.
I lost you a little bit in
Yeah. I'll say again, but
specifically.
back on the land use element, I know
Yes.
we didn't have anybody raise their hand. I'm rethinking that and thinking it's worth making a comment to council about how we have changed the historical land use section to focus more on the historical land use by Indigenous people in Kenmore.
Would you feel comfortable making that point for us?
Sure.
And I'll just introduce you then. Okay. So. Right, gotcha. Been on that, and on behalf of the commission, we, really, you folks did the heavy lifting here. We did not do the heavy lifting. And the wonderful thing is that when we did have an opinion or we looked at things, you considered it and you came back with a constructive and a completely understandable opinion from the staff perspective of what we can and cannot do, or what we should or should not do. Personally, and I think all speaking for the commission, without you two and your expertise, we can't do it. And sitting on councils and commissions, it's rare that we have such quality staff and experts that actually interact with the officials so that we get something done that we're all satisfied with. Even Debbie's smiling. I mean, that's, and she's been at this since this city has been incorporated. So you've seen it all, I'm sure. So and we're going to make a point of saying that in front of the council, and I'm sure they feel much the same way. because they are staff oriented and they listen to excellent staff. That's great. And our now awarded. You know, I'm gonna get a tiara for then I'll get a crown for her. She won't know. I don't want her to wear it. I just want to give it. Wear it for Halloween. All right, thank you very much. Is there any, I'm still about what we're gonna do for, I think it's December 17th. Party. 17th of December. Instead of a meeting, we're gonna have a get together. All right. Hearing no further discussion for the good of the order, it is 8:13 and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you all.
Good night, everyone.